Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Okay, I think we'll get going. There are enough people. Let's start off with Locke's social contract. So the last class we were doing the meanings of the state of nature. What is it that compelled John Locke to come up with his conception of a state of nature based in what he called harmony initially, but despite being based in harmony, he believes that the first stage is something that restricts the production of social wealth, but the concept of private property is talked about, but not fully discussed in the first stage of the state of nature. In the second stage, when Locke actually brings in natural rights in the first stage itself, and when he talks about the second stage of the state of nature, what he is doing practically, in effect, is that he's creating or paving the way for natural rights and also for the right to property. And I had told you that the reason why John Locke does this, the reason why he makes it a point to talk about property in the state of nature is basically to defend not only to defend uh, the whole idea of the right to property, but also he's doing this with a purpose, and the purpose that he has in mind is something which is a little more sinister. It is sinister in the sense that he is, through the second stage of the state of nature, preparing the ground to take forward his argument that the inequalities that people see are not socially created, but they are naturally created. I've given you the metaphor of the race. Everybody gets to start at the same time, but some people can run faster than others. Who decides that? Certainly not us. It's nature that decides that some people can run faster than others. And those who can run faster than others will win the race. So similarly, here he is putting up this idea of, what should we say? He's putting up this particular idea of rationality. He says those who have greater rationality are the ones who basically accumulate more property. I have given you a lot of examples. I'm not going to do that. Then we'll end up doing that again in this class. I've done 2 classes of that. So I'm not going to do that anymore. Now, if you look at what is the contract in Locke, just like he has 2 stages in the state of nature, as opposed to say 1 in Hobbes, Locke also has 2 stages. Two stages in the Locke has 2 stages in the social contract as well. You may ask, why does Locke require 2 stages in the contract? Locke requires 2 stages in the contract for a reason. Locke, I told you, is a very, very clever man. Locke doesn't do something without adequate reason. Okay, you see, he learned from Hobbes. He learned that by attacking or by trying to take a problem head on, you don't achieve the purpose that you want to achieve. So what happened with with Hobbes, is that he was seen as an enemy by all sections of society. He was seen as an enemy by the church, the king, and the and the people as well. So in Locke, I told you, you have the method of the liberal method of surmounting. So he will say your premises are right, but the conclusions do not match the premises. It is a part of this larger scheme that he talks about two stages of the contract. Now, in order to understand the two stages, especially the first stage is where Locke shows all his cleverness. That's where Locke shows all his cleverness. And if you look at Locke, what do you see? What you see in Locke is this particular idea that the first stage of the contract is among people to establish a civil society. Now, why is he calling it a civil society? If you ask yourself this particular question, why call it civil society? Then it becomes clear to you as to what we said in the first, what we said about the two stages of the state of nature. In the two stages of the state of nature, we do find I won't keep saying two stages, I'll just say in the state of nature, in Locke, there is a, what should I say? There is a rudimentary society, which is why the state of nature in Locke is not a war of all against all. In Hobbes, there is no society. It is pre-social. And because it is pre-social, um, there is uh, a war of all against all, as far as Hobbes is concerned. As far as Hobbes is concerned, that is the picture we have. But in Locke, we don't really have this particular stage where people are unsocial. The contract is not pre-social. The contract is among people who already have some kind of rudimentary society. So when there is a rudimentary society already in the state of nature, it is, hey, shut up. It is not, how will you then claim that they are setting up society? After having claimed that in the state of nature, everybody is behaving themselves. In the first stage, I told you there are those three limitations: the spoilage limitation, the sufficiency limitation, and then um, the labor limitation. And that these limitations are observed by people in the state of nature, which indicates that the state of nature is regulated. Okay, it indicates that the state of nature is regulated. That is why people are accepting those things. So if there is a state of nature which is already regulated, it basically means that there is some kind of society there. Locke kind of strengthens this argument with the introduction of money in the second stage of the state of nature. When money is introduced, then he says all restrictions, the three restrictions, which are or if you like, limitations, the spoilage, the sufficiency, and the labor limitation, they're all lifted. Why? Because money is made of metal. And if money is made of metal, then it doesn't spoil. And if you have more than what you require, then you can stash it away in the form of metal, which is money. And you can labor more than others and earn more than others if you have the ability to do so. So, having said that, what has he done? He has demonstrated the existence of some kind of society. Okay, and we call it a society because there is regulation both in the first stage and the second stage. So how can you say that when he's talking about entering into a social contract, how can you say that the first stage of entering into a social contract is the creation of a society? Because there is a society already, right? And that is the reason why he chooses this phrase, civil society. Now, this is a bit of cleverness again, very, very clever on the part of John Locke. I told you in Aristotle, you have the koinonia politicae. It's not koinonia, it's koinonia actually. Politicae is an organized political community in the polis. Because the Greeks had a polis, they kept talking about politia, politicae, koinonia politicae. They could talk about all these things because they had the polis. Now, when Latin writers were trying to translate, and for this you have to remember what I told you while we were doing, what's his name now? Wilhelm Dilthey. I told you Wilhelm Dilthey says that when we are interpreting the past, we have to come as close as possible, or in fact, you have to become the person who you are interpreting. That's what he said. And he said, if you don't do that, then you can end up creating, you can end up creating wrong interpretations. Now, what confronted the Latin writers who were interpreting the works of Plato and those of Aristotle was, what do we say about the polis? Because I told you when we talked about the legacy of the Romans, I told you that the Roman Empire began as a republic. Okay, it began as a republic. There was a triumvirate. There was the Senate, in which there were prominent citizens of Rome. And then there was the king. And you also had, apart from the king, you also had the magistrates. So that is how you had a triumvirate in the Roman Republic prior to Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was an ambitious man. And like I told you, Caesar is not a title. His name was Julius Caesar. And because of the fact that he had become such a powerful man, such a powerful conqueror, people decided that they should be like Julius Caesar. So, following him, Augustus took the name of Caesar. And if you look at the 2 months, usually you have 1 month of 31 days and another month of 30 days following the 31-day month. But July has 31 days. Augustus was very, very clear that this month, August, will be created as per his name, Augustus. So August, he didn't consider himself any less than Julius Caesar. So he said there should be 31 days in the month named after him. So you have these 2 months. July has 31 days. Then you have August that has 31 days. And the adjustment somehow went and fell on poor February, which had to pack. It would have been a 30-day month because January is 31 days. So this should have been 30, I'm sorry. But because this extra day has happened twice, it became 28 days. That's how February ended up with 38 days. I really don't know why they chose February to have this. I have no idea. But they decided that February is going to have 2 days less. So if you look at this, then you find that the Romans struggled to translate. Okay, they struggled to translate the concepts of ancient Greece. So the Canonia Politicae, it was something that got, there was no polis, so there's no political community, but the essence of Canonia Politicae is not just a political community, but a rational and evolved community of people. So that was translated by the Latin writers, the Romans. The Romans translated this into it got translated into some people say societas, but some people say the Latin version is societas. In English, it is definitely societas. I mean, society, societal. That's what it is in English. But people say that in Latin, it is societas. Societas civilis. Koinonia politicae, organized political community. A rational, enlightened community is what you find being translated into societas civilis, society which is civil, where people are enlightened, where people are civil to each other, where people are well behaved, they follow rules and regulations. All that became societas civilis in Latin. Nobody used this term in English till John Locke. John Locke revives this old expression of Latin in the context of modern day society. Now, please remember, Aristotle said that the primary natural potential of man was that man is a social animal. But the finished form of this primary natural potential is man is a political animal. When man becomes political, he's rational, he's considering everything in his mind before he acts. He acts responsibly. And that is what makes a community of rational people possible. So the Koinonia Politicae is actually a community of rational political individuals. That's what it is. So the Romans were trying to duplicate that very idea with the Societas Civilis. And John Locke, I told you, is a very clever man, goes on to this civil society. Now, what did he say? So he's made this distinction to establish that those who are rational will make more money, they have greater property than other people. But those who don't have any property, or those who don't have enough property, are the ones who are less rational. He doesn't say people are not rational, because please remember the premise with which he started. He started with the premise, I hope you remember, those of you who attended that class, I think Afrin attended it, maybe Aishwarya attended it. I'm not sure about that, but Afrin did attend, and I had very clearly told you that for him to establish an equality of beginning, he says all human beings are equal. This is in the state of nature. All human beings are equal in the sense that they have all been given the faculty of reason. They've all been given the faculty of reason, and therefore for him it is not a very big thing to say that people are rational. But what he does say after that again is that all people are rational, but all are not equally rational. They are equal to the extent that they all have rationality, which is the equality of beginning. And they are those who are more rational than the others, who manage to earn greater social wealth. So that is basically the position that he's taking. Now, having taken this position, uh-oh, forget it. I'm not going to waste time. Anyway, so now what he's trying to do is that he's saying that those who could not amass enough property, enough wealth, those are people who demonstrated that they cannot take care of themselves. Okay, so he's saying that those who could not and did not amass enough wealth proved that they are not capable of taking care of themselves, and also that they are less rational than others. Okay, who are the others? Those who could amass more wealth and proved that they're capable of taking care of themselves. So that is the crux of the argument that you find in Locke. Sorry. So he says that one cannot entrust the taking care of society to those who have proved that they are not capable of themselves. Do not entrust taking care of society to people who can't take care of themselves. That is the principle that you find in Locke. So, therefore, the first level of the social contract is only among those who have an unencumbered wealth of 40 shillings a week. That is what he says. Okay. So it's not just saying property and leaving it to people's imagination as to how much property people should have. He's very, very clearly saying that you need to have 40 shillings a week, which is unencumbered, which means you don't have loans. You don't have to pay this to anyone else. You don't have to do any of those things. Okay, and that is the unencumbered wealth that you have of 40 shillings a week, which basically means savings. Those who have savings, those who don't need to touch those 40 shillings a week as savings. If they need to spend money, they have some other source. But 40 shillings a week of savings those who have them, those people do not they are the ones who have proved that they are rational. These days, 40 shillings is nothing, but in those days, it was a lot. And so he says, these are the people who will enter into the first level of the social contract. So the first level Jesus, what am I typing? Oh God. Oh. Just give me a minute, please. I'm not able to see. So the first level of the social contract yeah, it is the first level of the social contract. I'm sorry, I didn't even know what I had typed there. I'm in acute pain. So they enter into who are these people? The people who enter into the first level of the social contract, which is the civil society. These people who create that are those who have this wealth of 40 shillings per week, which is like, your savings that you don't need to use up. That's not the maximum. That's the minimum. That's not, like I said, not the maximum, but it's a minimum. So Locke says that since these people have amassed social, there's amassed property, these people can therefore enter into a social contract, the first level, to create the civil society. Okay. Now, after this, Sorry. So you can see that first, those members who have at least 40 shillings per week as savings, they are the ones who enter into the first level of the social contract, and that leads to the setting up of the civil society. The civil society is a body that is distinct from the rest of ordinary society, because in the ordinary society, what you have is people who couldn't take care of themselves either, but they are living in some kind of social uh, system, and they need to be monitored so that they don't become antisocial elements. And that is the reason why this body, the civil society, will create a sovereign authority which culminates in the creation of the state. So the process initiated by So what are we seeing here? What we are seeing here is that the process that started, the reintroduction of the term political, which is to be credited to Machiavelli, in which he separates ethics, and at that time, still ethics and morals are the same. And he is somebody who separates ethics from morals. In order to do so, he ignores society. I told you that he abstracts society in his experimental method. In his experimental method, there's only politics. There's no society. There is no mention of society. In Hobbes, there is no society. He wants to prove that society can happen only with political authority of a certain kind being in place. And therefore, his social contract has this rather contrarian kind of a bias where first you are creating a sovereign and a state, and then you are creating a society. Everyone believes that society comes first, state comes later. Not in Hobbes. In Hobbes, you need to have a political entity called state with unlimited powers and with the citizens not even having the right to revolt against the sovereign and the state, because if they revolt, then they go back into the state of nature. So technically, he says the only time you can revolt against a sovereign is if he is threatening you, because the sovereign takes your rights away. The sovereign takes your rights away in order to ensure that you live a peaceful life. In order to ensure that you live a peaceful life, the sovereign takes your rights away. So, as long as the sovereign is fine, is looking after you properly, your life is long. Your life is something that is peaceful, and there is sociability and commodious living. But you have to submit to the authority of the sovereign. There is no running away from that. So you have this unlimited sovereign with unlimited authority, and he can do, or he doesn't actually say if the sovereign is a person or if it's a body of persons. He just calls the sovereign uh, he just calls the sovereign a Leviathan. Now, is that a person? Is that a group of people? We don't know. But whatever it is or whoever it is, the sovereign is all powerful. And he takes away the rights of the people. So see, you can see a progression. A proto-modern thinker, Machiavelli, creates politics in the, well, the modern period is just about starting. It didn't really come into being in his time. So in that sense, you'll have to say he anticipates the future, which makes Machiavelli that much more greater. So he's bringing back into the mainstream of life a word that was lost for centuries. I told you, the Hellenistic phase of Greece, it shows the decline. If the Ionian, the Eleatic, and the Athenian phases of the Greek civilization show the illumination of intellectual illumination of ancient Greece, then the Hellenistic period is that which shows defeat. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. Who do you have? You have the Stoics. Stoics who are saying that you are sitting and enjoying yourself, okay, and not enjoying yourself. You're sitting and suffering, and there's nothing you can do. So please put up with that suffering. Please put up with that suffering for as long as you can. That's what uh, the Stoic said. The Cynic said, nothing good will happen in life. Nothing good will happen in life. Life, only bad things happen. All you have to do is not complain, because your complaining doesn't change life. Okay, that's what they say. It doesn't change life. So just put up with whatever comes your way, and nothing good will come your way. That is the Cynics. And then you have the Epicureans. Well, the Epicureans are different. At least they believed in hedonism. And again, I did talk about this before, but I don't see any reason why I should not repeat this particular point. Hedonism, even in the Greek sense of, in the Greek language, does not represent the pursuit of happiness, pleasure. It doesn't. What it represents is a debauched life, one with no morals. Hedonism is not a good thing according to the Greeks. It is not a good thing according to the Greeks. Hedonism is something which is bad. It is, the mindless pursuit of pleasures. The mindless pursuit of pleasures. Now, Epicurus was a cripple. Epicurus said all this talk about soul and that, the soul will do this, the soul will do that. It's all complete rubbish. It's all complete rubbish. So, don't believe in all that. Enjoy life. Let's embrace hedonism. Let's drink.
Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
soul and spirit both are same.
Uh, Not always. Not always, madam. In fact, rarely are they the same. Very, very rarely are they the same. Because when you, sorry, you were saying something?
No, sir.
Yeah, when you're talking about a soul, uh, the soul is that which is inside your body. It is the life-giving substance, but you can't call it a substance because it's not tractable to your five senses. Okay, you cannot feel your soul, you cannot touch it, you cannot smell it, you can't taste it. So in that sense, It eludes the senses, the soul. Okay, yet it is the soul, for the believers of the soul. It is the soul that keeps our body alive. It is the soul that keeps the body alive. And if you go into dharma and karma, if you lead a dharmic life, then your karma becomes sukarma, good karma. And therefore, when you're born again, you get a good birth. You don't get a bad birth. That's an Indian expression. And in the Indian understanding of the soul doesn't go through only the human life form. It goes through all kinds of forms. According to the Vedas, both in the Rig Veda and in the Yajur Veda, you will find that there is a mention of the whole universe being a divine living system. Nothing is dead in the universe. Nothing is dead in the universe. Everything is living. So even rocks, grains of sand, all of them have a soul. Okay. Contrary to this, you have the Western belief. The Greeks believed that the soul existed only for human beings. And this is something that has been picked up by the Christians, who claim that only human beings have souls. Animals do not have souls. Okay, whereas that's not the case here. Now, when you talk about spirit, a spirit is more like, again, the comparison between the soul and the spirit, which makes them look similar, is the fact that the spirit also doesn't have a body. I mean, sorry, it doesn't, yeah, it's not something that you can touch, feel, smell. You can't. But spirits, in the Indian sense of the term, spirits are different kinds of celestial beings who exist without bodies. They exist without bodies. Now, the other way in which you can use spirit is he has an undying spirit. Okay, so you see cripples like me, but I'm not a good example. Huh? I'm just saying that I'm a cripple. That's all. But there are cripples who achieve a lot of things. I mean, look at Helen Keller. None of her senses were functioning. She couldn't hear. She couldn't see. She couldn't talk. She couldn't do any of these things properly. Yet, Helen Keller became one of the most knowledgeable people on earth in her time. Somebody who's out of 5 senses, 3 senses just didn't exist. She never saw that as a disadvantage. She saw that she could touch with the mouth and understand things. Touch with the mouth and understand things. Lips, not mouth, actually. So, what did she do? She used that one thing to start understanding things around her. And she became this tremendous legend because of her undying spirit. Her senses were not working, but she was spirited. I will learn. So there's a spirit inside her, which is not the soul. You can have a spirit and soul both together. But if you use the Hegelian meaning, he seems to say the spirit and the soul are the same.
Mm.
So there are all kinds of interpretations. But in my own understanding, it is not untrue that the spirit and soul can be the same in instances, not always. In instances, they can be the same, but otherwise, they can be very different. They can be very, very different. So to get back to Machiavelli, Machiavelli anticipated the modern period, brought politics into the vocabulary of the mainstream, and good old Thomas Hobbes picked up where Machiavelli left and made a compelling case for a state. You could possibly say that one of the pioneers of the modern state, the state is, please remember this, the state is only a modern institution. It is not an institution that existed prior to the modern period. So the state takes shape in Hobbes, but it is Locke, who cleans up everything, makes separate categories, and starts showing us as to how things are. So you have a society, but that's not the civil society. Then you have the state. What is the state in Locke? It is limited Okay, it does not have sweeping powers. The state is limited. Then he also talks about government, which is also limited. He talks about the government which is also limited. Okay. He is clear that natural rights are retained. There is no surrendering of rights. Natural rights are also retained. So this is an entirely different system. This is an entirely different system. What we find here we find a very well-rounded articulation of what is classical liberalism as a philosophy in Locke. Please remember that liberal democracy is very different from liberal philosophy. So what we find in Locke is a classical liberal philosophy, not liberal democracy. That came later. The idea of democracy and all that, though there is a bit of democracy in Locke as well, but he's not somebody you can say or you can call the person who talks about a liberal democratic state. He's not. In fact, what is this? I have to use this word again because I can't find a better word. If you read Adam Smith, if you read David Riccardo, it's all economics. But Locke is a properly, truly well-rounded political economist because he's not talking only about the market. He is also talking about how to have a political structures, how to have political structures, sorry, that will enable the existence of the free market. Okay. So you see, this is what he's a political economist in the truest sense of the term, because he has created not just a free market, he has also created a state system in which you have the the preservation of free thinking, freedom of speech, free will, and the all important free market. Okay, and Locke is acutely aware of the fact that sovereigns can become tyrants. They can basically threaten the rights of the people. And therefore, if the civil society members feel that their rights are being threatened, or if they think that the governance by the sovereign is not proper, then they have a right to remove that sovereign and get another sovereign. For him, it's not like Hobbes. You revolt against the sovereign and you go into the state of nature. For him, no. There are all these protective barriers. Nowhere is the state of nature a bad thing. It's not. And anyway, the civil society is an enlightened body, a rational body, something that is capable of taking care of things. And therefore, it can rebel against the sovereign, the civil society. So if you look at among all the institutions in the Lockean scheme of things, it's a civil society which seems to be the most powerful and most important. So I'll close with Locke here today. I originally thought I'll take a class this evening, but I'm in no shape at all. But from tomorrow onwards, I definitely, whether I'm in a shape or not, I will take evening classes so that I can finish off the syllabus. Tomorrow, we'll, just before doing Rousseau, we'll talk about romanticism, because there is a great deal of romanticism in Rousseau. In fact, there is a discussion among scholars as to how to characterize Rousseau. Do you characterize him as a romanticist thinker, or do you categorize him as a rationalist? Because both of them are present in Rousseau. The romanticist is present, the rationalist is present. So how do you basically characterize Rousseau? So you have to weigh the pros and cons, which is more, which is less. Okay, so Rousseau is our only slightly big topic now. After Rousseau, we need only one class for Bentham. These are political lightweights. One class for John Stuart Mill. Well, the other paper I'm worried about, Dworkin. I really don't know how I'm going to teach you people. And that too, it's so few of you coming. Anyway, thank you. Whatever will be, will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.